Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be around the world, and welcome to another Office Hours here on Hosting.com's Agency Success. My name is Nathan Ingram. I am the agency trainer here at Hosting.com, and every Thursday you get to pop in and ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. So glad you've done that. Looks like we have, let's do a quick refresh on the list. 7 questions in the list, so still plenty of space for you to ask yours. If you always catch these on the replay, I know many of you do, and you never have a chance to get a question in live, you can always go to wpnathan.com and click the Ask a Question button up there in the header. That will let you ask a question, and we'll drop it in the queue, and you can watch it on the replay. All right, well, let's get started with the weekly brief. These are several items that I found in the WordPress tech AI type news that I think are of interest to those of us that are doing client work. So let's get started. And by the way, if you'd like to download the weekly brief deck, that link is waiting for you in the chat. All right, so WordPress 7.1 is starting to take shape. They are aiming this release for WordCamp US on August the 19th. So trying to coincide with that WordCamp, that's been what they've done for the past several releases. WP7 was released around WordCamp EU, so that's kind of a thing they're doing now, which I think is not a bad idea. They're going to actually supposedly get real-time collaboration put into core. There's a lot of technical matters to work out for that to actually work. They had to pull the React JavaScript 19 out of core at the last minute, and that should be integrated into core as well. That probably doesn't affect many of you unless you're a hardcore developer, but it is a good upgrade that we'll look forward to in WordPress 7.1. One other big thing that's planned is something that they had talked about for WordPress 7, but it wasn't quite worked out. And that is the client-side media processing. So rather than having your server resize images, that work can actually be done in the browser using your local computer's resources. And so that's a generally good thing. They just had to work out the details of that. So that got pushed to WordPress 7.1, and that's a pretty cool thing. It's also going to do the format conversions into AVIF or WebP, and that's particularly interesting because you may remember in a recent live stream, we talked about the benefits of those AVIF files. They are they're significantly smaller. It's a very advanced compression algorithm, but it does take a lot of compute power to crunch those images. And so it can be a bottleneck on servers, even good servers. So doing that client side, like using your computer to do that conversion as part of the upload process is a good thing. So that could be a very practical benefit that WordPress 7.1 brings. And there'll be a lot of other things added as well to WordPress 7.1. We'll track those as we get closer to that release date in August. One thing that was just announced by Matt Mullenweg, probably last week, I believe, is the Protect the Shire initiative. So Matt has announced a delay of up to 24 hours on every theme and plugin release that's set to have auto updates. So if your site has auto updates on, this tool is supposed to detect that and delay the actual drop of the theme or plugin for 24 hours. And the reason they're doing this is to protect from some of the supply chain attacks that have been happening in WordPress. So, if a plugin is attacked and the supply chain is corrupted, then and that's set to auto update, then those are automatically, the vulnerable versions are pushed right to WordPress sites. So there's now a new teammate in the WordPress.org plugin review process named Gandalf. It is an AI tool, and it's watching all the things, supposedly. So the announcement said that manually updating a site is not supposed to trigger this 24-hour wait, but some folks have reported that it actually does, and so there may be some kinks to work out in that system. So we'll have to see there. There's been some criticism, as there always is when some new change comes to WordPress. But in general, I think this is a good idea because supply chain attacks are becoming more and more prevalent, in WordPress, as evidenced by the story in our next slide. Some of the awesome motive plugins, including Opt-in Monster, probably one of their biggest, was hit with a supply chain attack recently. Researchers at SanSec found an active supply chain attack that was adding admin accounts and a hidden back door to sites that were running Opt-in Monster, Trust Pulse, or Push Engage. 1.2 million installs, so it's a big deal. You may have seen actually some posts in Facebook groups recently, WordPress-oriented Facebook groups where people are reporting that user logins are being added. Might have been this. Adding an admin user is something that exploits tend to do, but this is one of the freshest ones. So anyhow, it also tied in another vulnerability through Uncanny Automator using a third-party service, a little bit of a niche attack. But anyway, if you're using any of the awesome motive plugins, you should update those because there have been active issues. All right, some interesting things happening at WooCommerce. We've been talking for some time about the initiative within the automatic world, of which WooCommerce is one, of Matt gave development teams freedom. So, hey, just go out there and build something without the normal has to go through 8 levels of approval to, get something done. And there have been some really good things that have come out of that work. Many of them have been from the WooCommerce team. This radical speed initiative is what they called that. And there's some cool things that are coming to WooCommerce Core that you used to have a plugin for. So, for example, attribute, color, and image swatches is coming to Core WooCommerce. So you can visually look at a thing before without and just instead of just dropping down a text drop down. Also, the variations that WooCommerce has had for a long time now support image galleries and video so that every variant of a product can have its own set of images instead of just one single image swap. So that's a big deal, and all that used to be something you'd have to buy a plugin for. That is now coming to core WooCommerce. They're also adding on review emails. So an automatic email that goes to a purchaser asking them to leave a review. That will be something you can toggle on and off. And again, part of core, you used to have to buy a plugin for that. Another, native abandoned cart notifications. That was a huge market for add-on plugins. That's going to be part of WooCommerce, as well as a native wish list that's going to be part of core. So these are all great changes that used to require some additional purchases that are now going to be part of core WooCommerce. Pretty cool. There is one very important note, though, regarding WooCommerce, and that is that they are retiring, or I will say, they gave up on making this work, which is the use of the block editor in the product descriptions. So they're just not going to do that. It's been beta. They're deprecating it in WooCommerce 10.9, which will be released in the next week or so, I believe, with a full removal of support for block editor product descriptions in WooCommerce 11, which is scheduled for the end of July. Now, what does that mean? If you have a store that you've turned on that beta feature and you're using the block editor in product descriptions, you're going to need to address that. I don't know the exact path for addressing that yet, but I'm sure there'll be a way. It's just going to convert back to the standard WYSIWYG, the tiny MCE editor that's been part of WooCommerce forever. Now, what they're doing, they're just skipping the block editor altogether, and they're going to move towards what they call the product data views and data forms, which is going to look a lot like the way the site editor addresses pages. So they're kind of skipping past the block approach into the next generation of what WordPress editing looks like with these data views. And so, yeah, if you've moved your site into blocks, there's probably going to be an easy way to convert that. I just don't know what it is. That's something you'll need to Google and take a look at. All righty. If you are an Elementor person, there's great news because Elementor's AI tool called Angie now has what they call super admin mode. And this is pretty darn cool if you're an Elementor person. So Angie will give access to the whole file system now, database, PHP layer, every plugin on the site. It's very, very similar to what we've been doing with Novamira. And so we've been using Novamira in my agency for some time. And this is the kind of thing that it exposes. So if you are an Elementor user, this is a great tool that you might find some interesting uses for. They do give the same caveat that Novamira does, which is you really should only use this on a dev site, not a live site. And also, you really should make a backup before you do anything with your any changes through Novamira. So anyhow, if you're an Elementor person, give that a look because it's pretty cool. If you're a Beaver Builder person, there's great news because there is now the alpha release of Beaver Builder AI that is available to you. Now, you'll have to go specifically log into your account on Beaver Builder's website and go into the downloads area and click the button that says show me the new developer release stuff. And you'll see 3 things to download: the Beaver Builder plugin, the alpha release of this new version, also the Beaver Themer alpha release, and a Beaver Builder AI plugin. You'll have to have all 3 of those on your site, but I've used them and it's pretty good with the one caveat that what it's building, it's using this new block. So it's different. Matter of fact, I'll just show you. Why don't I just show you that? Okay, so take a look at this. This is just a quick client demo that I put in. Now, if you're a Beaver Builder user, notice here's the outline, and they're using this thing is called a block. Now, you can click right in here and make edits, and that's pretty cool. They're sort of like components, which are relatively new Beaver Builder features. But to look at the settings, see, here's the way it's set up. So it's not like a standard heading block and a text block. It's different, but I kind of like it. You have some control over typography here. There's an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript area here, and then your advanced settings. So it's different than what you're used to. But it just builds it right out from an HTML mockup, or you can just have a chat and it'll build something for you. The neatest thing about all of this is that one of the biggest criticisms of page builders is how deep the div tree is, which takes a little while for browsers to render. But look how flat this is. So here's entry content where the theme hands it over to Beaver Builder. And this is the Beaver Builder element, 1, 2 levels deep. That's it. So there's not that long div tree that you used to see in Beaver Builder and other page builders. It's very flat, which means it's going to render quickly. So it's smart work that the Beaver Builder team has done, and I'm pretty excited about it. Let's see what else is going on here. Yes. Google Lighthouse has now added agentic browsing scores to what you see in pagespeed.web.dev. Notice right here. So this is a preview of nathaningram.com, which is, by the way, hosted on rocket.net. It's built in Beaver Builder, and look how fast that is. Rocket.net is awesome. And it will show you, it's giving a ranking, a rating on how browsable is that site for AI agents. So Google is now surfacing this for you. They do say that it's something they're actively developing, so we'll start to see some more data probably around that. So pretty cool. That, like, you can go now to the PageSpeed Insights and look at your site, and it'll show you your browsing ranking and point out any issues that might be causing AI agents not to be able to browse your site. Speaking of AI agents browsing your site, bots now outnumber humans for the first time. So Cloudflare has released this data that says that agentic AI bots are now generating about 58% of global web requests. It's crazy. Humans are down to a little over 42%. The CEO of Cloudflare, Matthew Prince, said this happened a lot quicker than he thought. Agentic browsers taking over. And this is, you're going into ChatGPT or Claude and you're searching for something and it goes out and tries to search the web for you. That's the kind of traffic it's talking about here. In North America, bots already account for almost 70% of activity. And in smaller areas, and they picked out Gibraltar, for example, Gibraltar sees 97% bot traffic. That's insane. This is what the web is becoming. It's pretty outrageous. One last thing I'll show you. Maybe you saw this in some Facebook groups. I absolutely love this. It is a snarky take from an accessibility expert on, hey, oh, you want a one-click accessibility compliance button? Okay, let's build that for you. And it's called thecompliancebutton.com. And we'll just tell it what site we want it to certify. And it goes in and does this crazy stuff. None of this is real. We're going to vaporize the audit. We're going to bless the 404.B form, relocate the risk. It's just ridiculous. Policy vibes are now verified. Human effort removed from the forecast. And they just made all this stuff up. And so now we have our certificate of compliance. One button compliance just for you. It means nothing whatsoever. It's just a little stab at those tools that say, oh, just install our tool and we'll make your site compliant, which hopefully you know is not the case. Anyway, that's funny, and I thought you'd enjoy it. A couple of things coming that I want to make you aware of here at hosting.com. The first is on Tuesday, I'll be talking about the content audit. And I'm excited about this one because originally this was going to be a non-AI webinar live stream, but I'm doing so much of this with AI now that we're going to show some processes that are helpful just in auditing a site that you're going to rebuild and how to interact with your client around that, but also doing some really cool things around that topic with AI. So that's coming up on Tuesday, June the 23rd. Also, on July the 7th, 2 weeks later, I'm going to be talking about MCPs, and particularly the Rocket.net MCP that will allow you to connect to your site and do all sorts of cool things like Novamira does. But with the Rocket.net MCP, you actually get access to the whole hosting layer, all the Cloudflare stuff and everything that's related to hosting.com, to Rocket.net. It's really amazing, and I'm looking forward to showing that to you. And finally, on July the 21st, we'll be talking about speed and WordPress and how we can fix those issues. So lots of things coming up. Let me drop in the link bundle here in the chat to register. This is always at upcoming.myagencysuccess.com. All right, well, let's get into some questions, shall we? If you have a question you'd like to ask in this office hours, please use the link that is in the chat. And currently, we have 14 questions in the list. So you folks have asked several after we got started, which is great. Let's start with, this is holdover from last week from class. And let's see what class has to say. All right. I can't seem to copy and paste. This does not bode well for the rest of office hours. All right. So class has a question about the Cadence debacle and clients. I've used Cadence since 2020 to build the full site, no page builder. I have a grandfathered iThemes toolkit that I've kept renewing that includes unlimited Cadence installations. But since the Cadence newfangled pricing is one license per site, costs would increase dramatically if that grandfathered license ever went away or they changed the terms. Clearly, I wouldn't want to eat $2.99 per site per year. Nope. You'd have to increase the price of the care plan. Yep. Most likely to generate press. Good choice. But what are your thoughts about the conversation with existing clients giving the possible options? Number one, the grandfather license stays good. No cost change. Keep using Cadence until number two happens, which is uncertain. Two, forced to buy individual licenses. Would you make the client buy that license or add it to the cost of the care plan? Number three, exiting Cadence for existing sites would incur a migration cost to change the tech, etc. Okay, so class, I understand why there is concern all around Cadence. I don't have any indication or knowledge that they are going to change the grandfathered plans. I have no idea, right? So all I can tell you is what I'm going to do, which is at this point, nothing. I'm fine with Cadence as it is. If we have to make a change, we'll make a change. which gets into the second part of your question. But I'm not anticipating any change in their current licensing structure for these grandfathered plans. My guess is, class, they're quite happy to be collecting from you the amount you're paying for your toolkit every year. I think they're happy with that. I don't think they'd want to lose that revenue, which is what would happen. And I think they know that. So I don't know. Those are total guesses on my part, gazing into my crystal ball, which, is often wrong. So what would happen? Let's just guess and, paint a picture of the future in which no longer were there agency type unlimited site licenses for Cadence, or honestly for any plugin or theme that you might have in your stack. That's clearly a problem. Now, what would you move to? It's always a good idea to be looking out for other options. I think you've pegged GeneratePress as one of those. I think that would probably be what I would go to if I went away from Cadence. So just kind of have an idea of what you might go to, but honestly, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But would you charge for the conversion? This is tougher. And I am of two opinions on this. Number one, the client probably didn't choose Cadence, right? You chose Cadence. So do you charge the client to convert from something that they didn't choose to convert to begin with? That's a hard call. So more would be, okay, the way I would look at it is, okay, if it's clients that were, in the last couple of years, I don't know. I think I would have a hard time charging for a move to a different theme. I think I would just have a hard time with that. The second piece is, if they're older than that, maybe. And the way that I have framed that to clients in the past, like when we moved away from, who's been around long enough to remember the old iThemes Builder theme, which was brilliant in its day. We charge conversion for that because I would just tell clients, look, that this software is no longer supported. That's not the case though for Cadence. The licensing is different. So, you could position it to them as, if we want to stay with this theme, it's going to be your cost of your plan is going to increase by $30 a month, which is not that bad, honestly, in most cases. Or we can convert you to this other site for X number of dollars. Maybe you even spread that cost over a few months. That's another option. I would have a hard time charging a lot for this because the client didn't make the theme decision. It's a tough one. In class, you're right. You're talking to clients about a refresh every 3 to 5 years. One thing that's another option here that would not be my first option, but it also wouldn't be the world blows up option, is what if the theme doesn't get updated for a little while? Are there vulnerabilities in Cadence? I don't think so. How much of what you have in Cadence requires the pro version, right? Are your site, could they get away with the free version of Cadence? Maybe. Same for Cadence blocks. Maybe the free version is good enough. So anyhow, those are my thoughts. I don't think you have anything to worry about. So hopefully this is all just a conversation of possibilities. All righty. Next up is also class. Let's talk about WooCommerce and Stripe subscriptions. Okay, so class has a nonprofit website that uses Woo, where constituents can sign up to sponsor a program for a monthly amount. Yep, we have WooCommerce subscriptions installed. The problem is, every time someone creates a new subscription or a one-time donation on the website, Stripe creates a new account, which leads to multiple accounts for each donor in Stripe. Yeah, it's rotten. That has then led to a donor being incorrectly charged for 2 subscriptions and other weirdness. Thoughts on how to set things up between Woo and Stripe to avoid this? Yeah, it's tough. You would have to have some sort of plugin that tells the WooCommerce Stripe subscription to, before they create a new customer, try to match it to an existing customer. Now, my inclination is you could probably build that as an add-on plugin. And by you, I mean you and your favorite AI buddy. I would imagine that's possible. I would try that and just see what happens. It's so, these core, well, official, that's the word, official WooCommerce plugins are often the least capable of the lot, and they cost the most. And this would seem to be something that they would have figured out already, but for whatever reason, they haven't. Yeah. So that would be what I would try to do, class. Try to see what code is available. Follow. I'm not sure where you are in your AI journey, class, but download a copy of that whole WooCommerce subscriptions plugin to your desktop. Point your AI, your folder aware AI tool at it, like I showed in the last live stream, and let it digest that plugin and tell you what your options are for, extending it with this extra feature that goes out and looks and tries to match to an existing customer. That'd be what I would do. Or find a plugin that just does it already. Claude is, and for that matter, Codex from OpenAI are very, very good at working in Stripe. Alrighty, next up is Bonnie. Hey, Bonnie. Bonnie is moving through the Cloudflare basics checklist and re-listening to the webinar. Yay. When it comes to only proxying the WWC name, I wanted to confirm that the CNAME record does not get proxied. That's how I understand it. So yes, the only, as a rule, okay, you could have some edge case where this may not always apply, but virtually always, the only CNAME that I'm going to proxy is the www. Mail.mydomain.com. Okay. Depending on how you're setting things up, it depends on where that's pointing. So if you're running, Bonnie, are you running email on that server, or is mail dot like just a shortcut to Google Workspace or something like that? If you're actually running mail on your server, I would urge you to rethink that decision. But in that case, you would proxy that CNAME. Oh, you're running email on the server. Okay, my condolences. Yes, you'll want to proxy that CNAME for the same reason you proxy the www. If it's pointing back to your server, any of these CNAMEs, then you should proxy the CNAME. Okay, awesome. Next up is, but hang on a minute. If that's the case, Bonnie, then that should be an A record, not a CNAME. Mail.mydomain.com should be an A record pointing to the IP address of your server if your server's doing email. And in that case, it's an A record. It should always be proxied. We use www as a CNAME because we want that to do the forwarding back to the root URL. Generally, CNAMEs are external services, which is why you don't proxy them. Okie dokie. Bonnie has another question. All right, another Cloudflare question. Cloudflare auto-selected automatic SSLTLS versus full or full strict, which looks like a new option since the webinar. Go figure. Cloudflare added something new. Yeah, I've seen that too, and it's just going to pick the best, so it's fine. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Automatic is perfectly fine. It's going to look and use the mode that makes the most sense in that scenario. Alrighty, and finally, one more, Bonnie. Why is having a staging site not a good idea, and when would it be a good idea? Okay, so I think this comes from some little side comment that I made maybe in an office hours about staging site. Staging site is it's never a bad idea, right? So, I think the context in which I said we don't use staging sites is that in most cases, you don't need a staging site if you're just going to build a page on a client's live site. You don't need a stage. It's overkill for that task. And for most of us operating at the level that most of us do, we typically don't ever need a staging site. You do need a staging site if you're doing something like bug testing, or you're trying to, figure out some giant plugin problem that if you messed it up, it's going to affect the live site. So in that case, definitely make a staging site, do it over there. But if it's just adding, simple basic troubleshooting, you can do that on the live site often, as long as it's not going to do anything destructive. So it is a good idea if you are, let's just say, oh, we're going to add this whole extra feature in our WooCommerce store. You probably want to just make a dev site and test that out and make sure it does what you expect it to do. Then you can replicate your work over on the live site. Where people get into a problem is if they have a live site that has transactional things happening, such as e-commerce, membership, LMS, things where users are interacting with a site and saving progress or orders or subscriptions, that sort of thing on the live site. When you fork that over to a dev site, they're not ever going to be in sync again. So you can't push back from dev to live. So for many of us, it's just not something we typically use. It's not that you shouldn't, it's that it's just it's not a solution that makes sense in most cases. All right, next up is Stacy C. With Claude Code, are you working in an IDE, desktop app, the online cloud, or some combination? Do you use it on a separate computer? I'm still really leery of putting it on my main work computer, but it's a bit of a pain switching systems. Yeah. Stacy, I would say that by nature, you are just knowing you are probably more cautious than you should be about this, honestly. I'm running Claude app on my Mac, and it works great. So I'm not using an IDE. You can run Claude Code in the terminal if you want to. That's how it started. But the app is great. It has all the features that you have in terminal, and it just works well. I've never been a Claude Code terminal user. Chris from my team loves terminal, and so he has been doing most of his work in Claude Code in the terminal. But he even told me this morning he's looking at the desktop app. So, it's a small win for me personally. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just easier, in my opinion, to use the desktop app. Do I use it on a separate computer? Yes, but in addition to my main computer. I actually have another computer running an instance of Claude that has some scheduled tasks that it runs to help us out with what we're building. So there you go. Did I answer your questions? Yes. So Git is we use Git with everything we do because we're building a library of stored context, and we use we use GitHub to keep it all in sync. Okie dokie. Stacy, I would say go for it. Sue says, I recently got an email that my server admin confirmed was not spam. It said that one site had the WP version number exposed. So I dug a little deeper into iTheme security, or whatever it's called, and found the checkbox in the advanced area. So it's no longer in the meta tags, but there were several other very specific checkboxes that I wonder if you might take a minute and explain if I should check them. What checkboxes? I guess we can dig in here and see. Also, Cadence plugins had a 6.9.4 in the plugin name and view source. Is that just their naming, or do they duplicate I have no idea about that one. But we can take a quick look at the security. I do happen to be running Cadence security on WP Nathan. And so let's see. That, I believe, is under settings. Let me just search for it. It's not even findable in the UI. Is it under system tweaks? No. WordPress tweaks? Maybe. Where is it? On the advanced tab? It's on the advanced tab. Yeah, I don't see it. They may have removed it. I don't know. It's not there today. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing over there. Okay, so I've been, Sue, if you've been following the starter site series in the magic snippets that I've given out even the live stream we did here on hosting.com last year, in the MU plugin snippets, there is a snippet that will remove all of that sort of stuff from the WordPress head. That's the way I would do it anyway, and not with a plugin. Um, yeah, you can ask your favorite AI tool to give you the snippet, and you can just drop it in an MU plugin or in your functions.php. See your next question. This question, Cadence plugins question. Oh, there's another question. Oh, okay. Let me jump down to Sue's next question. Do you know where in the heck Cadence moved the file editor that used to be in Appearance? I'm not using a child theme with its own functions and CSS files, and I do not have that option checked on the site. So so in core, there is a theme editor that would be under the appearance menu. And Cadence didn't move it as much as there's an option to disable it. Let me see if I can find that one. Yes, disable file editor. And you probably want to do that. It is not a great idea to have a file editor. There'll be one under plugins and under appearance by default. And you do want that because that's huge. You can break things easily. And if somebody gets access to your WordPress, they have lots of options. So she says, try disabling it and see if it reappears. Well, that's interesting. Let's see. It doesn't, and again, that may be a WP config issue. You can turn that off in the WP config. Let me get to a cPanel, and we'll take a quick look. Just a second. All right, so here's the cPanel for WP Nathan. And let's look at the WP config file. And let's see if, no. Well, I'll need to reset all those keys that I just revealed. So we'll be doing that after the live stream is over. Yeah. So I don't see any, it's not there either. I wonder if that's something that core WordPress changed. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't see it either. It should never, I mean, it's a terrible idea for that to be there these days anyway. So I hope core WordPress did remove that. I'm just not aware that they did. If somebody wants to Google that and let us know, that would be great. All right. Let us. Oh, wait a minute. Gene, you may be right. I wonder if it is in ASE because that is also active here. Let's check that. And just see. It is. It's in ASE. Thank you, Gene. Good catch. So apparently there's a similar option there in ASE that is hiding. I don't know. It's in there somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. Search. I don't know. Good question. Maybe security? No. I don't know. Good question. We'd have to go dig for it. All right. We have a bunch of questions left and time is short, so I'm going to keep rolling here. But it was apparently related to ASE, which is interesting. All right, next up is Ben Anderson. Hey, Ben, what is a good replacement for Cadence Security? I don't know. I haven't found a good security plugin that does what I want a security plugin to do. Most of them are way too bloated, and I don't like them. So, again, I have no plans on leaving Cadence, nor do I have plans to change Cadence Security. Jamie's asking about what about WP Ghost? That's one of the few that's on a short list, but it does too much. It just does too much. It's too bloated. It's doing things like firewalls and things like that. We don't need that. But that's one of the ones that I would look at first. All righty. Most WordPress security plugins are selling you on kitchen sink functionality, and they're not aimed at agencies. They're aimed at the end user who thinks more features is better. And that will get you into trouble and speed issues. Okie dokie. Bonnie, fourth question. Now that I've created a turnstile widget and associated the site new site key and secret key, what are the next steps? So Bonnie, where are you embedding this here turnstile widget? Because normally you would have a plugin that's asking you to provide it those keys. So for example, in Cadence Security, if you want to use turnstile for your login protection widget, you put those keys in there. So yeah. Let's see, is there a response? Not yet. So whatever plugin you're using to add a CAPTCHA, yep, that's what you want. Now, I will tell you, if you're using the protection rule that passes any traffic to the WordPress login page through a managed challenge, you don't need to put a CAPTCHA on the login page. You're just double challenging the traffic. So that's where we don't even use turnstile on most sites. What we do use turnstile for is WooCommerce sites. So as part of the checkout flow, we add a turnstile just to eliminate all those card testing attacks. And Melanie just dropped in a link in the chat to a fantastic plugin called Simple Cloudflare Turnstile, or it's called something else now, but the URL is Simple Cloudflare Turnstile. And that will let you add the turnstile to the WooCommerce checkout flow. So we do that in addition to our Cloudflare rules on all our WooCommerce sites. Okie dokie. Next up is Doug. Hey, Doug. All righty. What kind of virus checking and security should I have on my hosting.com VDS? Is there any benefit to using We Watch Your Website? So built into your VDS by default is a service called Immunify 360. It's going to be running at the operating system level, and it does a file scan. It is like a traditional malware file scanner, and it also has some firewall capabilities. It is quite good. Now, is there any benefit to using We Watch Your Website? Yeah. Thomas is my buddy. He's brilliant. And he has, he's more active in the cleanup process, etc. If you have a problem, especially, he's going to fix your issues. So think of it like Immunify is a mass-produced solution that's pretty good. We Watch Your Website is a more niche, bespoke solution. So you could run them both, I believe, without a problem. That's something you want to talk to Thomas about, though. Many Cadence questions today. I'm using the Cadence Pro to create a new website. It was started before all the drama. I have a search icon in the top menu. It opens a black screen with a search box. I looked up how to make it a drop down using AI. I even uploaded screens to Claude. It helped me tremendously, and I got somewhat changed, but the options I'm supposed to be seeing when adding the search to the menu are not there. The bottom line from Copilot was I needed to have the latest version of Cadence to get the search options, such as drop-down option. I'm current on all my updates. Yeah, I'd make stuff up. Is there a new version of Cadence that adds features? Okay, so let's take a quick look. because the only options for the cadence feature for search, you get those, you go into the header, you click search, and it's going to give you, nope, I'm in the wrong spot. Let's see. I thought it was here. There's a place where you can pick what you want this to do. Hang on a minute. Search. Click the pencil, not the icon. Yeah, that just takes me here. There's a place where you can change the style of the search. On the design tab, that's where I just was. Yeah, it's not that. Let me make sure. Hang on a minute. Let's make sure I have toggled on. It may be in the pro features where I go to cadence and I turn on header. No, header add-ons are on. Interesting. Where did they put that? I thought it used to be. This is one of those things where we have it set in our base site and I never look at it again. Is it in the setting for? No, it's not there either. It's, huh. Well, Elizabeth, I have no idea. Does anybody know? How weird is that? There used to be three options. It used to drop down underneath was an option, or it would slide open a search box, or it would give you the modal search. And that's so weird. Click on search. That's what I did. I clicked the gear and that takes me here. Yeah, pencil in the header, click the search box. That takes you right here to header search. Really, really weird. Yeah, it's not under design. I could have sworn it was in this section right here. And maybe they changed that. Okay, we could remove the search box and add it again. Sure. Yeah, no difference. I don't know, y'all. That's weird. That is weird. I do not have an answer for that. It used to be there. So I do not know, Elizabeth. You got me on that one. Yeah, there were three options for that search icon at one point. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's been gone for a while. Okie dokie. Sorry, Elizabeth. Ben is next. Ben wants to know, is paid membership pro any good? A customer has some trouble with RPC, restrict content, or RCP, restrict content pro, and is thinking about replacing it. Support is getting much worse. Yeah, it's been bad. We moved from RCP to paid membership pro on a couple of major sites that we support. Did that probably 2 years ago and have not looked back. It is quite good. I really, really like their team. They have a Slack group where you get almost immediate responses, either from a support person who's lurking or from community members. And their documentation is thorough. And AI tools love it. Like it, my Claude jumps right in there and can solve things pretty quickly if issues come up with memberships. So I'm a huge fan of Pay Memberships Pro. The founders are buddies of mine, really good folks, family company. 100% recommend. Okie dokie. Next up is Gene. How would I safely give access to an account to AI for some assistance? For example, I want AI to create a spreadsheet of all the plugins used in my sites. The information could be drawn from my Solid Central account. Could I give access to AI to review all plugins slash site there and make it a chart? Sure. The easiest way to do that, Gene, is just use the Claude uh, Chrome plugin. Set up the plugin in Chrome, log in and connect it to your Claude account, and it will let Claude view what's in your browser. So that way you don't have to give it any login information. You just log in and then tell it to open a tab to this URL that's like the logged in view of all your dashboard and whatever. And it can go in there, it can click things, it can it can scrape the text and make a chart, whatever you want it to do. So that's there's lots of other ways probably, but that's the simplest way to do what you need it to do. Giving Claude access to a browser is super helpful. Stacy, you could totally just take a screenshot too. Absolutely. Ben has just given us a little nudge about our search bar thing. Before I go, Gene, does that make sense? That's what I would do. Let's take a look. Is search bar? Oh, yes, that is totally it. No, that's not it. You know what? Maybe they got rid of the one search what do you call these things down here? One search item, and they've made it two. So now there's just the search icon, and now there's a search box. And they got rid of the drop down the bar thing. Because I don't think there used to be multiples the last time I looked at this. Interesting. All righty. Let's see. Two questions left, and we're just about at the end of time. So we'll wrap it up after these two. Ben, another question here, Mr. Anderson. I'm thinking about this for a new site build. It's free even for recurring. Sounds almost too good to be true. Their model is mission is funded by optional tips that donors can choose to add at checkout. Interesting. So it's a free donation plugin built for nonprofits, one-time and recurring donations, manage donors and campaigns, give them a self-service dashboard, no paid add-ons ever. It's built, look, this is, if they built this on the interactivity API, that means it's brand new, cutting edge, fresh code. It's already at 1.3. Recurring donations are included free. Interesting. At checkout, donors see a small optional tip pre-selected at a small percentage by default. Ooh, I don't like that. I do not like that at all. Or you can do a flat platform fee instead of donor tips at 3%. Interesting. So it's beautiful. I'd like to see what that checkout thing looks like. Looks like it's not going to give us that. Wow, this is really nice. Yeah, it's not going to show us what that what that checkout feature looks like. That's interesting, Ben. I don't like the fact that it's automatically selected. Um, So the tip is for the plugin developer. I mean, it's not a deal breaker. Interesting. Well, thanks for that, Ben. I think I will give that a look myself for a couple projects and just see what happens. All righty. Final question of the day comes from Tanya before I have to go roll all my keys on WP Nathan. LMS has become the bane of my existence. Any recommendations? I'm currently using Academy LMS, but have run out of bug spray or patience. With all that's going on at Liquid Web, I'm leery of going the LearnDash route, but will if that's the best option. I mean, I don't know. So I guess LMSs are, quite frankly, a pain in the butt. All of them are. They're all hard. They're all complicated. What is there a particular pain that you're trying to get rid of? Yeah. So two votes for LearnDash in the chat. A ton of little bugs. Well, I'm going blank on the alternative that I usually recommend for LearnDash. Lifter. So Lifter is a classic. It's a classic WordPress LMS plugin. It's been kind of the competitor for LearnDash for many years. It's still a founder-led plugin. There's a bunch of new ones that I don't know that I trust fully. And at some point, honestly, you have to ask yourself, is this something I really want to put on WordPress? Does it really need to be integrated into the site? Because if you want a SaaS, then, something like Thinkific, Kajabi, oh goodness. There's a bunch of them out there. Circle, yeah. Depending on what kind of features you actually need in the LMS, if you just need a basic something that's going to let people complete a series of things, then my goodness, Fluent Community is pretty darn good. It has a basic course module built into it that works really well. And it's like a whole wrapper around a community. So yeah, School, Skool is another one. They're all kind of the same. But yeah, you really have to ask yourself at some point, is this LMS something that has to be in WordPress? All right, great questions all today. That brings us to the end. Let's see. Tuesday, we'll be talking again about that site rebuild process where we're looking at particularly a site audit and finding about what content is missing or needs to be kept or forwarded, or the whole thing of how do I rebuild an existing site with a great content strategy in mind. So that's what we're talking about Tuesday. If you haven't signed up for that live stream, please do so at upcoming.myagencysuccess.com. You'll find that right at the top here, content audit. Looking forward to sharing that with you, along with some extra AI bonuses in that live stream that I hadn't initially planned on, but it should be fun. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you don't do any work at all and you enjoy some great time with friends and family and doing stuff you enjoy. I'll see you back here Tuesday for the work. Next time here on Hosting.com's Agency Success, where we go further together.